Picture a trailer in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, late 1980s. No windows worth trusting the dark through. Inside sits a machine that nobody in the outside world is aware of yet. They're calling it the egg. It doesn't look like much. A gutted sensory deprivation chamber, wired into a bank of borrowed computers, a tangle of electrodes on top where a lid should be. 2 scientists built it, a brother and a sister the local commune took in after Princeton stopped returning their calls. They call the work cognitive chaos. By the 4th version of the machine, one of the runaway kids who drifted onto the property the way runaway kids do, climbed inside the egg, while they started the sequence. And then the egg did something it never did before. It disappeared. Not powering down or short-circuiting. It completely disappeared. Boy and machine both, out of a locked trailer in the middle of the woods. 7 minutes passed. However long 7 minutes feels when you're staring at the spot where a machine used to be. Then it's back, as if it never left. The same hum, the same spot. The kid climbs out shaking, and he tells them he was somewhere else. Not somewhere far, somewhere next door. Another Earth, laid right up next to ours. Same coastline, same stars, the same pine barrens outside the window. Except there were no people in it. None. Like the world had been built and everybody had simply never arrived. That's the story. That's the moment the whole legend of Ong's Hat hinges upon. A gate between worlds, opened in a trailer, in a machine, nicknamed the Egg.
There are fae and cryptid, lores and legends, of which there are skeptics and cynics of all kinds. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth.
And we are between the myth and belief. What the hell is that?
I was really hoping you didn't know about this one.
I don't know. I mean, at first I'm going, tell me she didn't do Jersey Devil. And I'm like, that's my I'm supposed to do that one, But no.
Not at all. In this case, it is about something more than what we usually do. A lot of times we focus on the occult. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we focus on the cryptid or, the spooky section of things. Mm-hmm. This one's a little bit different because I wanted to do something that was less about belief and more about myth.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to reside, in the firm area of fiction.
Okay. I'm okay with that. We're going to figure this one out. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I really love the fact that you don't know about this because you get to learn along with everyone else. Mm-hmm. Hopefully everyone else. It's fairly obscure unless you've been online. Uh-huh. I heard trappings of this back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was very much an online phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So we'll go over all that.
Okay, so before you go and walk us through the Pine Barrens, we're going to talk about the calendar of the weird for the weeks of July 12th through the 25th. The calendar of the weird. I feel like that needs to be like reverbed or something. I don't know. So this is going to be the calendar for the weeks of July 12th through the 25th, so the day that this airs, all the way through till the next time. So we start off with Monday, July 13th with the Embrace Your Geekness Day. If your brand of geeky means deep diving into old newspaper archives for Mothman sightings, consider this your official permission slip to talk your coworkers' ears off. Follow that right up on Tuesday the 14th with Pandemonium Day, the perfect holiday for anyone tracking high strangeness because chaos is just part of the job description. Then we get to go into some horror-related events. So if you're looking for a weekend getaway to celebrate the macabre, from Friday, July 17th through Sunday the 19th, Days of the Dead is taking over Indianapolis. It's a massive gathering of horror fans, special effects artists, and spooky creators. We've got the link in our show notes if you want to snag a ticket. Now, if you like space and cryptids, Monday the 20th is Space Exploration Day. We'll be celebrating the cosmos, but let's be real. We'll also be keeping an eye out for anything uninvited and UFO-like. Then Saturday the 25th is a huge day for the weird. First up, the 8th annual Smoky Mountains Bigfoot Conference lands in Gatlinburg Convention Center in Tennessee, which is kind of in our backyard. Not close, but close enough. This thing sells out every year, so make sure that you get your tickets early. They do live encounter sessions where attendees get to jump up on stage and share their raw audio and video and pictures of Sasquatch experiences, which is pretty cool. So if cryptids are not your thing and you prefer ghosts, on that same weekend, starting July 25th, the Coastal Haunts Paracon is kicking off in Brunswick, Georgia. It's a super inclusive, community-driven paranormal con featuring massive creators like the Foreman Brothers and the paranormal princess herself, Haley Michelle. Now, let's turn to some astrological outer space kind of woo-woo science, my favorite part. We have July 14th is our new moon is in Cancer. And this is a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's a thing. So you get a powerful cosmic reset right at this point. And your emotional security and vulnerability is what's going to be shown in this new moon. However, because this new moon is heavily entangled in that bastard retrograde Mercury and a tense square to Saturn, expect some old emotional defense mechanisms to surface. It is a day to breathe through our triggers. On the 22nd, so the sun is going to enter into Leo, and we're going to get some cosmic energy shifts that go away from the deep, watery introspection of Cancer and burst into that bold and creative, expressive fire energy of Leo. Mercury is going to, on the 23rd, it stations direct. So we can all take a deep breath of relief after weeks of scheduling chaos, brain fog, and technology glitches, which I am going to tell you, yes, it has just been my whole entire past few weeks. We're finally going to be coming out of that. And we're going to have some misunderstandings that are going to start clearing themselves up. Now, our new moon in Cancer is an emotional new moon. So again, that's on July 14th. And normally the Cancer new moon is all about cozy vibes and setting intention around your home life and focusing on self-care. But this one's a little bit of a cosmic sting. It's sitting right next to that retrograde Mercury and crashing directly into a harsh square with Saturn translation. Expect some old emotional baggage or hidden triggers to pop up out of nowhere. If you find yourself overreacting or slipping into old defensive communication habits on Tuesday, take a beat, log off, and protect your space. 2 more things before I let Beth take over again. It is we have our shift to a fire energy. So Cancer is one of our water astrological signs, and Leo is a fire sign. So the heavy watery introspection starts to shift and lift on the 22nd, and the sun officially marches into Leo. And this is going to kick off the Leo season, which immediately injects a massive wave of confidence, bold creativity, and loud expressive fire energy back into collective. And last but not least, we have a big relief window on the 23rd because Mercury is going to finally, like I said earlier, leave retrograde. This is going to be the end of some brutal days and a lot of miscommunication and just a brain fog. Oh, the brain fog. So look forward to that happening. So use the first half of the week to feel your feelings and then get ready to execute your big ideas once the communication lines clear up after the 23rd. All the links to these events are waiting for you in our show notes. And now that the calendars are appropriately weirded out, it's all for you, Beth. All about you and the Jersey Pine Barrens.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And how about that Mercury, eh?
That
crazy,
bitch.
crazy stuff. Feel like we're on a TV show or something.
I know.
Stay classy, San Diego. All right. Before there was a gate to another dimension, there was just a hat. Ong's Hat is a real place. It's in the Pine Barrens of Burlington County, New Jersey, and it shows up on record as far back as 1700, when a settler named Jacob Ong bought about 100 acres out there, and the land started appearing on maps simply as Ong's. The hat got added later, sometime in the early 1800s, and nobody really knows why. One story does say that it came from a tavern that had a hat painted on the sign, and another story says it's a corruption of Ong's Hut, which would have been an ordinary name for an ordinary little structure out in the pines. But the story that people actually tell, the folk version, the one that gets repeated because it's better than the boring ones, goes like this. Jacob Ong had himself a fine silk hat, a real luxury for a man living out in the scrub pine. And the story says a jealous lover in a fit of temper stomped on it and ruined it.
How dare.
Ong, who was furious, grabbed what was left and flung it up into the air, and it caught high up in the branches of a pine tree, and that's where it stayed. Long enough that travelers started using it as a landmark. Turn it Ong's Hat, and eventually that's just what the place was called. It's a sweet little story, charming even, and it has nothing to do with quantum physics or hidden dimensions. That part came almost 200 years later. What we do know is that by the 1930s, Ong's Hat was already fading. A folklorist named Henry Charlton Beck wrote it up in a book called Forgotten Towns of Southern New Jersey, describing it as a vanished town with a rough past. They had brawls, prize fights, and isolated country dances. A place that had a life once and then simply didn't. By some accounts, the last resident, a man named Eli Freed, left sometime in the 1920s after the farming out there just didn't work anymore. So that's the true skeleton, a real ghost town, a charming, unverifiable name origin, and a quiet little corner of the Pine Barrens that most of the world would never have heard of.
I lived in New Jersey and I've never heard of it.
Well, the internet found it.
Good for them.
So somewhere around 1989, before most households had even touched the internet, a strange little pamphlet started circulating. It was photocopied. It was passed hand to hand in coffee shops and at concert venues, the way flyers for a show get left on a windshield. It was called, in full, Ong's Hat, Gateway to the Dimensions, a full-color brochure for the Institute of Chaos Studies and the Moorish Science Ashram. It read like an actual promotional brochure, confident, very specific, and it described an organization whose stated goal was, and I'm going to get this close to word for word because the phrasing is a part of the charm, the enhancement of consciousness and the consequent enlargement of mental, emotional, and psychic activities.
That is a mouthful.
Right. Not, we think this might be possible.
It will happen.
Enlargement.
Enlargement.
Present tense. Like it was already happening and you were simply late to finding out.
Yeah. All the cool kids are doing it.
Right. From there, it spread the way many things spread before spreading was instant. Bulletin board systems. The old dial-up forums that were the internet's proto-neighborhoods.
Oh, we know that well.
Mail art networks. Fax lore, if you can believe that's a real term. Stories that traveled by fax machine between strangers who trusted each other on nothing but shared curiosity. A companion document appeared, too, and it was called Incunabula, a catalog of rare books, manuscripts, and curiosa, conspiracy theory, frontier science, and alternative worlds.
Damn, they just were fancy.
It's very long, and it read like a bookseller's inventory, if the bookseller happened to be selling forbidden physics alongside the rare first editions.
Wait a minute, there's forbidden physics?
Well, apparently so. People downloaded these documents by the hundreds of thousands, eventually, by some counts, over 2 million times. And here's the thing about early internet culture that I think many forget. There was no blue check mark, no verified sources, and absolutely no way to quickly confirm whether the person posting a leaked document from a secret research commune was telling you the truth or just handing you a very good story. So the infrastructure of trust just didn't exist. And into that gap walked Ong's hat. So according to the documents, the story starts in 1978 with a man named Wally Fard. The lore ties him to a real organization, the Moorish Orthodox Church of America, which the documents describe as having been founded decades earlier by a small group of jazz musicians and poets who'd broken off from actual historical Moorish science temples.
Wow.
Which sounds a lot like Schrute Farms.
Oh my God.
I wonder if there's a connection. Fard, in the story, had spent years traveling through India, Persia, Afghanistan, and studying under different teachers, picking up fragments of Eastern philosophy and esoteric practice the way a magpie picks up anything the light catches. When he came back to the States in 1978, he took his entire life savings and bought 200 acres of the Pine Barrens land right around Ong's hat. So in a way, reflecting Ong himself.
Mm-hmm.
He moved onto the property with, and I love how specific this detail is, several runaway boys from Paramus.
Jesus. Paramus?
Yeah.
Wow.
And a pair of, it keeps getting me over and over, and a pair of anarchist lesbians from Brooklyn.
Well, that's where you get your anarchy lesbians.
From Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn.
And out of that unlikely household, he founded the Moorish Science Ashram.
Okay. Wow, how have I never heard of this?
I do not know. I don't know how you haven't heard of it. I figured it would be pretty big for you. But I think it'll become clearer as we go along why you haven't heard of it.
Well, I mean, you were talking about, like, you know, the names and stuff. That's not unusual for New Jersey, you know, the Ong's hat thing. There's some horrible places in New Jersey that, like, the names. I'm not going to say the name of the street because it is very, very anti-Semitic, but there are things like that. And then, you know, you got the 7 Shades of Death Road. There's so many weird roads. But yes, places also.
True. Now, for those of you that don't know, an ashram, if that word's unfamiliar, is traditionally a retreat, a spiritual community set apart from noisy, ordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, according to the legend, became exactly that. It was a hiding place for people who didn't fit anywhere else. Fard published his own newsletters, Xeroxed and passed around laying out his beliefs. And slowly, the way these things do, people who felt they didn't belong anywhere started finding their way to his land. Among them, eventually, were two scientists. Frank and Althea Dobbs were twins, and they were raised in Texas inside a UFO worshipping cult their own father had founded. So whatever else you want to say about them, fitting in a normal academic life was probably never in the cards. And yet for a while it looked like it might work. Both of them ended up at Princeton, and both of them submitted doctoral work built around a concept they called cognitive chaos. The university was not amused. The documents, they say, were dismissed essentially for what amounted to seditious nonsense. And that's when they found their way out to Fard's land in the pines. They set up a lab in an old trailer. There was no oversight, there was no committee, no tenure track breathing down their necks. Just two scientists with a theory that no one would fund, and a patron in Fard who was intrigued enough to bankroll them. Now, their idea roughly was that the human brain has this enormous unused capacity, and that if you could learn to manipulate the chaotic, unpredictable patterns of brainwave activity with enough precision, you could do things that sound quite crazy, like a wish list, slow aging, or reverse disease, access states of consciousness that nobody mapped out yet. The ashram was so taken with what they were doing that they built an entire organization around it, the Institute of Chaos Studies. So 2 more fringe scientists joined, and a machinist, and over about 3 years working with hardly any resources but total freedom, they built something that started as a modified sensory deprivation chamber and grew it into a device that nobody had a real name for. And they are the ones who called it the egg.
Okay.
We already met this moment at the top of the episode. The egg was built to explore a genuinely real area of physics. The question of when a wave becomes a particle, the strange, fuzzy threshold quantum mechanics sits on. The team hooked test subjects up to computers and charted their brainwaves and experimented by their own accounts with sex, drugs, and sensory manipulation to try to steer the mind into something they called cognitive chaos on purpose, rather than by accident.
Okay.
By the 4th version of the machine, they tested it on one of the runaway boys living on the property. And that's how the story opened. He disappeared with the egg. Unprecedented event, was not planned on. And 7 minutes passed. And when he came back, he described this alternate Earth, which was identical in every geographic detail from what the kid could see, entirely uninhabited by people. The legend calls this discovery and the doorway it eventually became the gate.
Okay.
So we have the egg and the gate, no chicken yet. And here's where the story gets really ambitious, because it doesn't stop at one empty parallel Earth. Later versions of the mythology claim the travelers eventually made contact with something on the other side entirely. A civilization the documents describe using the term Class 4, meaning in the loose classifications some of these fringe physics circles used, a society so far beyond human development that concepts like conflict and scarcity simply don't apply to them anymore.
Okay.
A utopia encountered by accident through a machine built in a trailer by 2 scientists nobody else wanted.
Yeah, there's so much I am trying to process here. How long was he gone that he knew that the whole world was uninhabited?
Well,
Like, I know 7 minutes our time, but what about his time? Like, did he get out? Did he wander the world? Is he the same age when he returned? I have so many questions.
So that part doesn't actually come up as explaining what his time was.
Mm-hmm.
I get the sense that it was 7 minutes for the kid, just like it was for them.
Yeah.
So time seemed to pass relatively the same.
Yeah.
And it was just his idea of how long it took. And
Because, I mean, if it only took him 7 minutes on his side, all he was seeing was the Pine Barrens, and there's nobody there.
Right. I think what would give it's like, how when you just know no one's in a building.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I think it's the stillness of human civilization. Maybe that's what they're referring to.
Maybe.
But I think more of that will become clear as we go through too.
Okay.
Because this is just the story. We haven't gotten to the meat of the matter.
Okay. No worries.
The quantum matter.
Ha ha ha.
That's funny.
Go Ant-Man.
None of this was ever demonstrated. There's no footage. There is no peer review. No surviving egg to examine. What we have is a narrative, told with enormous confidence and specificity, in documents that read exactly like the internal materials of a real research organization. And that confidence is doing a lot of the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a technique worth naming because it shows up everywhere in stories like this. Specificity reads as credibility, even when the specifics are the only thing anyone's actually offering as proof. Every good legend needs a reason the truth had to go quiet, and for Ong's Hat, this one was built right in. According to the story, disaster arrived from an entirely mundane direction. A nuclear accident at a nearby military installation, generally identified with the real Fort Dix, threatened the ashram with radiation exposure. And that crisis is what supposedly drew outside attention to the compound in the first place.
Okay.
Authorities, the legend says, start asking questions about what exactly was happening out in those woods.
Lots of bad things.
Well, what happened next depends on entirely which telling you're reading.
Okay.
And that inconsistency is itself part of the folklore now. Some versions say the community simply made the choice to leave piece by piece, stepping through the gate into that unpopulated parallel Earth to build something new, away from a world that had already called them insane once. Other versions are far darker. They describe a raid, a shadow government operation that stormed the compound, specifically to seize or destroy the gate technology, and that people died in the process, caught between two worlds at the exact wrong moment. What everyone does agree on in the story is the outcome. The ashram completely emptied out. The scientists vanished, and the only thing left behind was a single structure, which was the physical location of the gate itself, standing empty in the Pine Barrens for anyone determined enough to go looking. Which, of course, people did.
Yes.
Because that's what people do. Joseph Matheny, I think it's Matheny, is the name most tied to Ong's Hat. And he's never been shy about being the one who shaped it into what it became, though the origins run a little deeper and stranger than one author. The story draws heavily on Matheny's own account and later by research into the project on the real life of a man named Peter Lamborn Wilson, who wrote under the name, no shit you not, Hakim Bey.
What?
I know. His name was already odd enough. I don't know why Peter Lamborn Wilson couldn't come up with a more inventive name.
That's just, I don't know.
It kind of almost goes racism.
It does. Sound a little bit. A little bit.
But he was a genuine, if deeply eccentric, figure in anarchist and esoteric circles. Wally Fard's backstory in the legend borrows pieces of Wilson's own biography, blended with details from Wallace Fard, the founder of the actual Nation of Islam. Even the name of the fictional book collector who supposedly compiled the Incabella catalog, a man named Emery Cranston, was built out of Wilson's father's last name and the surname of a journalist Wilson had once worked alongside overseas. This get convoluted very quickly. And Wilson had a real friendship with a real physicist named Nick Herbert. Good, Nick. I like your name. It's very simple. A Stanford-educated quantum theorist who lent his actual scientific credibility to the story by letting his name and his real work get folded into the mythology. In interviews, Matheny would later push Herbert about the Ong's Hat research, and Herbert, in on the joke, would deliver lines like, "There are some questions you should not ask, ever." Which, read out of context, sounds like a real scientist confirming a real cover-up. That's the craft of it, honestly. The story didn't invent its plausibility out of nothing. It borrowed real people, real institutions, real physics vocabulary, and real counterculture history. And it stitched them together so carefully that pulling the seams apart takes actual work. And Matheny carried the project for years, through the 1990s and into the 2000s across BBS postings, zines, a published novel called Ong's Hat, The Beginning, and eventually a wave of internet forums where strangers built entire investigative communities trying to prove or disprove what they'd found. And Matheny, characteristically, refused to just hand people an answer. He'd said publicly that even among people who followed the story closely, belief in it as fact versus fiction was split almost evenly.
Okay.
The reveal, when it came, was gradual rather than a single dramatic unmasking. It's not Scooby-Doo, it's more Onion.
Okay. You kids, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you crazy kids.
Right. But around 2000 and into the following years, Matheny began quietly acknowledging in interviews that the project had always been experimental work of collaborative fiction.
Okay.
As a way of exploring belief in chaos science through story rather than a factual account of anything. But even then, he never fully closed the door. He let the fan communities keep building on it, keep extending it, keep half believing it, if they wanted to. And people showed up at his home, actual pilgrims, hoping he'd finally give them the real coordinates to the gate.
If you believe in something long enough, it becomes a tulpa.
enough.
Turns out that's what he was really working on. It had nothing to do with sci-fi. He was trying to create a tulpa.
I don't think he intended that. But yeah, I think inadvertently he perhaps did. As separate from whether you believe a word of the underlying claim, Ong's Hat is now widely credited in gaming and media studio circles as one of the earliest examples, maybe the first true example, of what we call an alternate reality game. It's a story told across multiple real-world media designed to be investigated rather than simply consumed. Every modern ARG, every transmedia marketing stunt, every is this real internet mystery owes something to a photocopied brochure about a trailer in the Pine Barrens. Wrap that around your tiny, tiny brains.
Oh, my Lord. My brain hurts because, I mean, a trailer in the middle of the Pine Barrens should already be a red flag.
I mean, yeah, because meth.
Well, maybe at some point, yes. But, I mean, it's like growing up in the Appalachians. There's just things you don't do. And if you see a trailer in the middle of the Pine Barrens, absolutely nothing else around, you don't go near it.
True enough. But it was studied seriously. There was an entire university press book on it.
Wow.
Legend Tripping Online. Examining Ong's Hat as a case study and how supernatural folklore migrates onto the internet and takes on new life there. It's been the subject of documentary treatment, including a BBC and Audible production called This Is Not a Game.
Okay.
And Matheny himself has kept extending the mythology well into the last few years with an ongoing project called Ong's Hat: Complete. Still being released in chapters and still drawing new listeners into the same rabbit hole that opened up on bulletin boards nearly 4 decades ago.
Wow. Talk about longevity.
Yeah, and the physical place is still there. Ong's Hat, New Jersey.
Yep.
Real coordinates off Route 72, deep in Burlington County. And people still go looking. Locals still get asked occasionally if they know where the gateway is. Like if the locals knew, they'd tell them.
Okay, so my grandmother lived in New Egypt, which is in Burlington. I believe it's in Burlington. It's south of Trenton. And I'm trying to think of, I've never heard of Ong's Hat, but I must have passed the area 1,000 times.
You may well have. Ong's Hat is essentially a ghost town, and it probably skirts it.
Yeah, and I keep wanting to grab my phone and look it up because I can't remember the name of the road I used to take, but I want to say it was 72 that I used to take to her house. Well, at least into the western direction because I lived on the coast. But
well, as
still,
far as I could tell, there was what there is of Ong's Hat is probably just a few minimal structures, if anything.
But I mean, like just the area itself. It's what I did see on really quickly earlier is it is north of Batso Village, and I've been to Batso Village, and I've traveled through the Pine Barrens many times. That's where I took the kids when we went back to Jersey. Was Batso?
Yeah,
Batsto Village.
Well, I know there's a diner in the area.
Oh my God, we probably passed it. On the way when we were heading from New Egypt to Cape May. That's just so crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit insane.
I mean,
but that's kind of the fun of it, I think.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I love weird shit about, that's why I was so invested in Weird New Jersey when that was a zine, and then, got pretty big for those boys. Boys, they're men. They're older than me, but whatever. But I have always been in love with learning weird shit about the state of New Jersey. I mean, born and bred, and that's where, I will never live there again if I can help it, but that's kind of where my heart always is a piece of it. It's always going to be New Jersey. And to learn new weird shit makes me all aflutter. I love it.
That's why I was so glad to bring this to you.
Oh, yeah.
So let me tell you about my take on this, okay? Where I land. Because I think the honest version, to me, is more interesting than a clean verdict.
Yes.
So Ong's Hat is not true. I don't think there's a serious ambiguity left on that point. It is a documented, traceable, deliberately built piece of collaborative fiction. Mm-hmm. And the people who have made it have said as much in their own words more than one time.
Yes.
But calling it, quote, not true and calling it not meaningful are two very different sentences. Mm-hmm. I am not willing to say the second one.
Yeah.
Because what Ong's Hat actually gets right in a strange sideways way is it something a lot of real esoteric and occult traditions have been circling for a very long time. And that consciousness might not be as fixed and singular as it feels from the inside. That altered states, ritual or sensory deprivation, chaos itself, is a working concept rather than just a mess. It's not just old tools. These are chaos magic is an actual practice. Mm-hmm. It's not the fictional institution's version. that treats belief as a tool that you can pick up and put down depending on what you're trying to do, Ong's hat basically dramatizes that idea. It gives it a trailer full of electrodes instead of the mysticism.
Yes.
So as a secular witch, I don't need the gate to be a real machine for the story to still do something for me.
Mm-hmm.
What I want when I sit with a legend like this isn't proof. I know it seems odd, but it's the shape of the longing underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And the longing here is so plainly human that people who don't fit in anywhere build a door out of a world that had already rejected them and walking through it together rather than alone to go to a new place.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does make me a little bit angry, though, because it's not fair. They got a whole planet to themselves, a whole alternate Earth to themselves.
Well, who's to say you can't still get there?
That is true. That is true. I do carry the blood of the NJ, so I might be able to be passable. I don't know what happened to those poor lesbians, but I don't think they made it through.
Well, they are lesbians.
They are. You Parks and Rec'd it. They are lesbians. So, yeah, no, I mean, part of me just kind of wishes I was back there because then I'd be like, let's go take a trek in the woods.
I would love to do that because I know while there is no gate, it's not about the gate.
Yeah.
For me, it's about standing in the spot that a fictional story has created. And here's the thing about fiction is that there are many things stranger than fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take belief, we make it into myth,
mm-hmm.
we are creating a world in which there is a possibility of its existence.
Yes.
The secular part of me loves that we can create these whole worlds in our minds
mm-hmm.
and share them with others, and they, in turn, adapt to that belief.
Yeah.
I find religion amazing in its many capacities. One is that it's amazing in its capacity for altruism,
mm-hmm.
but it's also amazing in its capacity to do the worst that humans do.
Yes.
It's horrible, but it's still amazing.
It's always amazing by how many people at one point can find faith in one thing, like thousands and hundreds and millions of people just focused on one thing, and that's where they find their faith. And that
True.
Amazes me.
I also find it interesting that they can ignore everything else around them for that.
Oh, yes.
Instead of focusing on the things that should matter more. But for me, Ong's hat really highlights the idea that once something is written, it becomes its own thing. It
mm-hmm.
becomes its own world. These words grouped together that alone meant nothing became a spell. It became a weaving. And other people didn't just hear it and follow it. They added to it. They
mm-hmm.
gave it its own life. They breathed in their own power into this working.
Tulpa.
Right.
Fictional Tulpa, but it's still Tulpa.
And I think that is pretty damn amazing. I know I'm saying that a lot, but really is.
It's true, though.
Because this is the new version of spellcasting. The writing of something that it's literally it's legendary through the internet.
Yeah, and you're right. You are totally right about that. And I see that a lot, and that is a big judgment in the witch community is, they make, though some, not all, and I'm not saying about all, because majority of the people who follow the craft and practice, they are so open. But you have the people who are like, you just get your spells off of the internet and da-da-da-da. Well, here, this is our library. These are our books. We do not be grateful that we don't live in the dark ages where we can't share information,
Well, that is such I keep saying amazing. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Okay.
People have grimoires.
Mm-hmm.
They have their spell books.
Yes.
And they're able to fill the pages of their book until they go to the next book that they have to fill.
Mm-hmm.
That is a blog.
Oh, yeah. That is what it is.
If you take the Buffy the Vampire Slayer attitude that you can still cast through the computer, as they did in one episode.
Yeah, that I don't know about.
I think that transference of knowledge is in itself magic.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
And if your grimoire, if your spell books are on the internet, that's just as valid as if they are in a leather tome, or if they're in a loose leaf notebook.
I think it's fantastic that there are some witches out there who create their a printable grimoire for people to download, and they can either just download the page, print the pages and create their own. I love that grimoires are now becoming, laminated binders, and
they're the monster manual of D&D.
But I appreciate this because it's definitely it's keeping. I think it keeps the magic alive. Where a lot of people do see it as watering it down, I think it's creating a bigger network. I believe it is. Magic is not going to run out. It will go quiet, but that's usually out of lack of practice. People, they just don't utilize it.
Yeah.
And so, this is the same situation where it's definitely a story that has grown, and the magic behind that story is what people are still grasping onto. And I feel like that's very similar to the online magic.
I agree.
Yep. I just think that's pretty cool.
So that is the story of Ong's Hat. It is very basic in some ways and very complicated in other ways. I think some of the science is fun, if not very accurate.
Yeah.
But they did take pieces. They took the pieces they wanted.
Yeah.
And it does open up a whole new thing of, interdimensional travel, quantum physics, or in this case, I think it's more about quantum coupling or quantum entanglement, two things across a divide that are entangled with each other, so they share this connection, and that's how you're able to transfer or able to move beyond.
I want to learn more about forbidden physics.
Well, I think that's part of the forbidden physics would be, I think, the unauthorized experimentation.
Yes.
Think Frankenstein's monster. The monster
that's
was
more
Frankenstein.
like forbidden biology.
Yeah, but think that.
Yeah.
It's the experimentation of something that you're not supposed to do is verboten.
Verboten.
So that is Ong's Hat. How do you feel?
I don't know. I think that it's definitely an interesting little bit of fiction, because I do want to know more about that 7 minutes. But since there's no information about that, how do we know what the kids saw and how legit it is? And since there's no actual proof that the egg existed.
Well, keep in mind, it's still evolving.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
It's still being written about. Chapters are still being added.
That
so whether or not
crazy.
They'll go back to that, I don't know.
Like, part of me wants to go and try to find it all and listen to it, but then also I'm afraid that it'll be like One Piece, where it's never ending and it goes back thousands of stories. But I can't do all that. I don't have that type of commitment.
It depends on the rabbit hole you're willing to go down.
That is true. You are so right.
But what I would love to do is find a fall day in which we go to Ong's Hat and we just walk the area.
Yeah. It was funny because last night, I don't even know what made me think of it. Or maybe it was this morning. I can't really remember. I'm a little exhausted right now. It's been a long week. And I was thinking that I would love to go to Franklin Institute with you. It was this morning because something you were watching had a pendulum, and it made me think of the pendulum in the Franklin Institute. And that is one of my favorite museums. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how much fun would that be if Beth and I went without any littles, because I've always gone with littles.
Right.
And to just explore the whole museum where I didn't have somebody dragging me somewhere else where I can actually look at the things.
Oh, I'm down.
Oh, yeah. So if we're going to go to Jersey and we're going to go to Ong's Hat, it's just maybe an hour or so away from Philly.
Oh, what would be a great idea?
Go up to New York and get...
No, if we take the portable and we do the podcast...
in Ong's Hat?
Ong's Hat.
That would be fun.
So we could very well do that. Maybe we'll do some... Maybe not do the podcast there, but we'll record pieces of it.
Yeah.
We can bring it back here and we can discuss it with our thoughts playing out.
I agree. I also think we need to get some ghosty stuff so we could do other things. Like if we go and do that idea of where we can travel and record, I want to have like one of those voice boxes or something like that, just so we can just be so stupid and be like, is there anybody here? And see what comes back.
I don't know that I want to do ghost hunting.
Not ghost hunting, but like,
not the A&E version
No,
of it.
No. But what I'm thinking is like, if we go to Ong's Hat, it's going to probably have a little bit of about it. But like if we have another story we want to go to the location of and it just happens to be a ghosty one.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think we should make it, if we're going to do a Jersey thing where we go see things, we should hit a couple of places. Then
we do need to go back to Batstow
We'll just do the
village.
Yeah, we'll do the New Jersey, like the short tour New Jersey.
Because the kids and I were
Between Myth and Belief podcast, so...
when we went to Batstow Village, the mansion was not open, but there is some vibes. There are some vibes.
Okay. I'm very much for that.
Allaire State. We could go to Allaire State Park as well, and that's another one that's got a lot of vibes. But I love Allaire.
I want to find the garden in which the state is named after.
Oh, honey, and the whole state's made of gardens.
No, there's one specific garden.
No, it's not.
I'm pretty sure it is.
No, but we could drive past Lakehurst Naval and where the Hindenburg crashed. I used to I used to drive past that like every time I went to my Nana's. So
and one day when we get to traveling more, perhaps we could go to Old Jersey and then we can compare the two.
Oh, that would be cool. I want to go to England and go to Old Jersey.
Old Jersey better than New England? Or New Jersey? Sorry, you said England. So is Old Jersey better than New Jersey? Or is New Jersey the real hotness?
Oh, I mean, it ain't the real hotness, but it's still, I don't know. I don't know, but it's probably, the Old Jersey's probably cleaner.
Well,
I love you, Jersey, but you're not.
Okay. Well, that is all I have for Ong's Hat.
So this has been Between Myth and Belief. If you like what you heard and you have a tale or two to share, not just about today's topic, but any odd or scary story that you'd like to hear us talk about, send us an email to betweenmythandbelief@gmail.com, or you can join us on Instagram and Blue Sky @mythandbelief. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to Between Myth and Belief wherever you listen to podcasts, where you're listening right now. And don't forget to check out our other podcast, Cozy Quilt Cinema, where we watch movies and talk about all the feels at cozyquiltcinema.com. Until next time, bye.
Bye.